mounting civilian casualties has stoked concerns that the war could spread to the West Bank and Lebanon.
That's a tragedy. That in and of itself is a war crime.
I beg you, please make sure that this never happen again.
We begin with the latest on Israel's war with Hamas. Israel's ground forces are pressing forward into Gaza and have surrounded the Hamas stronghold of Gaza City. Israel says it's killed hundreds of Hamas militants, but growing outrage in the Arab world about mounting civilian casualties has stoked concerns that the war could spread to the West Bank and Lebanon. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was back in Tel Aviv today saying that the U.S. stands behind Israel, but that Israel needs to do more to protect Palestinian civilians.
We need to do more to protect Palestinian civilians. We've been clear that as Israel conducts its campaign to defeat Hamas, how it does so matters.
And in Lebanon today, the chief of Hezbollah, a powerful Iran-backed militant group, spoke for the first time since the October 7th attacks. Syed Hassan Nasrallah praised the attacks and warned of a wider war if Israel won't relent. Congressman, Israel is sort of in a bind here, aren't they? We know that Hamas likes to use civilians for protection, but if Israel wants to take out Hamas and protect the civilians and hostages, how do they do that?
Well, it's not going to be easy, and there will be collateral damage, as we say. They have, I think, the justification to clearly wage a campaign of annihilation against Hamas, to use military strategic terms, annihilation. That's what Hamas deserves. And so they have that right, and they should be able to do it. Now, you correctly mentioned Hamas has all of the civilians lined up as shields around their military complexes and where their people are, things like that. That's a tragedy. That in and of itself is a war crime. To use humans as a shield like that is a war crime. So that's what the world should be doing, is calling Hamas out for committing a war crime by creating human shields, not the collateral damage when Israel does everything it can to not have civilian casualties.
How should the U.S. perceive the comments from the Hezbollah chief, citing in his speech that if Hamas is near defeat, they would join the escalation?
Well, that is concerning, but what is, somewhat reassuring is that he said today there'd be no full-scale escalation from the north, which I thought was expected, but they've got to continue the boisterous language. I mean, that is just modus operandi of all of the Iranian-backed militias, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, or the Houthis in Yemen, or the various ones in Iraq and Syria attacking Americans. So you're going to continue to see a lot of pushpas, so to speak, from these guys, and it's ironic. But yeah, they're going to talk a big game, and they're not going to take on the United States, which we've made it clear that those forces are there should Hezbollah go into Israel.
Saul, you're a survivor of the Holocaust. Did you ever think in your lifetime that you would ever see again the killing of babies and the elderly the way they did that on October 7th with those horrendous attacks?
I didn't believe that this can happen in this age in the world. I went through 3 concentration camps. I was almost dead several times. I know what the feeling is. When I heard this, I have a son who lives in Israel with a grandson. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever hear me, I beg you, please make sure that this never happen again. Let's get rid of them. If not, they're gonna try to get rid of us.